Okay, so today we are learning something brand new to 8th grade. You may have seen this a little bit in your science classes, but this is specific to 8th grade math. So scientific notation is just a condensed way to write a really long number, okay? I'm not going to say large because it doesn't necessarily mean that it's bigger than 1, but a really long number. I'm going to show you the technical way to write scientific notation, and then I'm going to show you a calculator shortcut, so bear with me there. And then we have to go from scientific notation to what we call standard notation, which means looks like a regular number. So scientific notation, let me go over the vocabulary really. Okay, scientific notation is written in this form. It has your coefficient, which is, like any number, it's in front of a variable or another base or something like that. So it's a coefficient. The technical way to write this, though, is this number in front of the decimal has to be between 1 and 9, okay? It can't be 0, it can't be bigger than 10, or 10 or bigger, okay? That's the technical way. And then you write it times 10 raised to the power of whatever exponent it has. And we'll go over that more in detail, okay? If the number itself is less than 1, then that means it's going to be a negative exponent. If the number itself is bigger than 1, then that means it's going to be a positive exponent, okay? So we'll practice writing that. So let me explain. If I look at number 1, okay, this is called standard notation because it's how we traditionally see our numbers, but a way to write it in a condensed form is scientific notation. So we want to move this decimal between these numbers here, but we need to follow the rule. The rule says that my decimal needs to go after a whole number, okay, but that whole number needs to be between 1 and 9. So if I put, for instance, the decimal here, the number in front of the decimal is 0, and it can't be. If I put the decimal here, then it's 567, and that's not between 1 and 9. If I put the decimal here, then it's not between 1 and 9 either. That's 56. The only place I can put the decimal is right there between the 5 and the 6, because the number in front of the decimal is 5, and that is between 1 and 9. So how it starts is, this is 5.67, okay, times 10. Now we just have to figure out what the exponent is. Well, since I know this number is less than 1, and how I know it's less than 1 is because it's 0 point something, I know my exponent's going to be negative. Well, let's see what my exponent is. I have to figure out, well, how many spaces did I move to get to this place? So we're going to look. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So my answer is negative 7. Good there. Let's try another one. So if I look at number 2, my decimal right now is located right here. It's just not visible. But I want to move this decimal to a place where the number in front of it is between 1 and 9. So where would my decimal move? Well, this would have to be between the 1 and the 4. And how I know is because the number in front of it, the 1, is between 1 and 9. Okay, so it's going to be 1.45 times 10. Now we have to figure out what the exponent is. Well, this time, since my original number is greater than 1, that means it's going to be a positive exponent. And now we just have to figure out, well, how many moves did it take for me to get from the original decimal to my new place? So we just do some loop-de-loops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And there's my answer. Let's do a couple more just by hand, and then I'll show you a calculator shortcut. If I look at number 3, again, my original decimal is right here. They want me to move my decimal where I have the number in front of it is between 1 and 9. So the only place to move that is between the 8 and the 5, because the 8 is between 1 and 9. So it's 8.5. Okay, notice that the zeros kind of go away. Now, times 10. Now, if I look at my number, it is bigger. My original number is bigger than 1. It's 8,500,000. So I know my exponent is going to be positive. Well, now we have to figure out, well, how many spaces is this from my original decimal to my new location? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's positive 6. Let's do one more. So if I look at number 4, my original decimal is right here. I need to move it to where the number in front of the decimal is between 1 and 9. So that would be between the 5 and the 2, because 5 is between 1 and 9. So it's going to be 5.2 times 10. Now let's see what the exponent is. This time, since it's less than 1, and how I know it's less than 1, it's 0 point something, I know my exponent's going to be negative. Now, I got to see how I get from my original decimal to the new decimal. So 1, 2, 3. So it's negative 3. So if that really confuses you, then I'm going to show you a calculator shortcut. And this only applies when I'm going from standard notation to scientific. When we go from scientific to standard, this is all by hand. But it's as easy as counting 1, 2, 3. So let's look at number 5. When I want to go from standard to scientific notation, we are going to change our mode in the calculator. This is the button next to second. And it opens up this menu, okay? The only thing that we ever touch on this screen is the scientific notation. Right now it's flashing on normal. We want to move it to SCI, which stands for scientific, and we hit enter to change it. And that's all you have to do. So all you do now is hit clear. Now, this is why this older calculator is a little difficult, because it doesn't tell you at the top, like the newer calculators, what mode you're in. So you really have to check. Okay, my mode is in SCI, so good, okay? All you have to do is type the number in. That's it. You just type in 250, and you hit enter. And it changes it to scientific notation for you. The only difference is instead of E, or instead of times 10, they do E in the calculator. So here's how I write it. 2.5 instead of E times 10, and the number after E is the exponent. And there you go. Pretty simple, right? So we're going to do the same thing for number 6. The hardest part about this is you just got to be able to count how many zeros there are, the longer the number. So so 0 point, and now we're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So 12 zeros, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and then the 5. And that's it. So if you miscount, then of course you're going to get the wrong answer. But my answer here is 5. Instead of E, it's times 10, and then raised to the power of negative 13. And that's it. Number 7, same thing. So 0 point, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 zeros. And then 4, 3, 7. So you type it in exactly like your paper has, and it writes it in scientific notation for you. So that's a quick little shortcut with a calculator. It definitely comes in handy, though, to know how to do it by hand, because in your science class, you have to do it by hand. So there's your trick, okay? Last one, number 8. So 7,000. The only thing you don't include in the calculator is commas. So no commas. You just do 7 with 3 zeros. Hit enter. Instead of E, we're going to write 7 times 10 raised to the third. Okay? Now, what I don't want you to think, though, is a lot of people assume that this exponent assumes how many zeros there are, but that's not true, because if you look at all our examples, it didn't specify that 3 zeros here or 5 zeros here. So don't assume that. You just have to know how to move the decimal itself. Now let's go from scientific notation to standard. This does not require your calculator whatsoever. This is all in your noggin, okay? Because it doesn't work 100% of the time in the calculator, so I'm not going to show you. Going from scientific notation to standard, all you have to do is pay attention to the exponent. If the exponent is positive, we are going to move the decimal to the right, because think of positive numbers, they're to the right of the number line. If it's a negative exponent, then we're going to move the decimal to the left, because think about a number line. The negative numbers are on the left. So what I mean by this, if I look at number 1, my exponent is negative 3. That means I'm going to move the decimal to the left. Well, here's my decimal right here. So I tell my kids, copy it and paste, okay, the 8.5. Put your pencil on the decimal, and we're going to do 3 times to the left. 1, 2, 3. So my decimal is now in the front. Now, when you have these empty spaces, all you do is put those zeros in there. So it's 0.0085. Now, the technical way, and so you don't get thrown off later, is this is correct. But they like to have a number in the ones place, so they're going to put an extra 0 there. It doesn't change the answer. It's just another way they write it, okay? So if I look at number 2, this time my exponent is a positive. That means we're going to move the decimal to the right. So copy and paste this to give us enough room. We're going to move this decimal to the right 7 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. In my loop-de-loops, I put zeros, and I copy this number down. My decimal is now at the end. Now, if we're getting technical, we can put commas every 3 spaces, but it's okay if you don't. Just make sure you know how to look for your answer. And the decimal is at the end, but we don't need to really write it. Okay, if I look at number 3, my exponent is a negative. That means we're going to move to the left. I'm going to copy and paste this down. Give yourself enough space to write to the left. So we're going to go 8 to the left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. My decimal is now in the front, and we're going to put some zeros. And if I look at how many zeros I actually have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. A lot of people think that this exponent tells you how many zeros there are. You can't think that. It just tells you how many place values to move. So I actually end up having 7 zeros, and then the 2, 4, 5. Okay, and again, just like number 1, they're going to put a 0 in front of the decimal just because. If I look at number 4, this time 11 is positive, so we're going to go to the right 11 times. And again, I want to give myself enough space to go to the right. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. If I actually look at how many zeros I end up with, it's not 11 zeros. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So it's 1, 1, 4 with 9 zeros. And if you want to get technical, you can put the commas every 3 digits, but it's up to you, okay? Number 5 is tricky because where is the decimal? Well, first, the 5 is positive, so that means we're going to go to the right 5 times. Well, where is the decimal when all they give me is a 4? Well, this implies that 4 is a whole number, so we're going to put the decimal after the 4. Now we can move it 5 times to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this is the only time where I actually have 5 zeros like the exponent. But please do not assume that it's going to be that way every single time. The only reason this one does that is because it didn't have a number after the decimal, so that's why. If I look at number 6, it's a negative exponent, so we're going to go to the left 6 times. So 9.8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. My decimal is now in front. If I actually look at how many zeros there are only 5, not 6, so watch out. And they're going to put a 0 in front of the decimal for funsies. If I look at number 7, my exponent is negative 9, so negative implies to the left. Again, just like number 5, 2 doesn't have a decimal, so it's implied that it goes in after the 2. And we're going to go 9 times to the left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. If I actually count how many zeros there are, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it's 0.8 zeros, and then the 2. And again, just for these, they're going to put a 0 in front of the decimal. If I look at number 8, they only want me to move, I said number 8 and wrote number 8. They only want me to move 1 time, and since it's positive, we're going to go to the right. So 5.3, if I go to the right 1 time, it ends up after the 3, and this time there are no zeros because I only had to move 1 decimal place to the right. So my answer is just 53. So there's scientific notation from standard to scientific. You can do it by hand or do it in the calculator. And then there is scientific to standard, which means do it by hand, to the right or to the left.